back to another episode of the Youth Ministry Booster Podcast. My name is Zach, working here with my best friend
Chad Higgins
in the garage with another episode of Zoo Ministry Booster. Is Youth Ministry Zooster?
Well,
you had some strong opinions over lunch today.
Okay, so
People got to know. I don't know where this is about to go. I just know that he got real hot.
I hear. Okay, so zoos versus aquariums.
The classic debate.
I just need to know where you stand
Okay.
on what is your preference.
I like that it's a dividing line for you. It's like one or the other.
You can't.
It's
do
hard to go both. It's hard to go both. One has to be better than the other.
Right.
Right.
So which one is better
Right.
in all categories?
Okay.
And the other part of this debate that many people have, zoos and aquarium, I mean, do you even think they should exist?
Oh, we're going ethical debate. Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, we're going to talk about it. People may chime in and be like, you guys.
Yeah, how dare
and
you? Fans of zoos, get out of here. Okay. I'll think that zoos are more interesting than an aquarium.
Okay.
But somehow it feels more wrong to.
So you
put-
don't like fish?
I feel fish have less souls than big cats. Can we quantify a soul? I've never looked into the eyes of a fish and felt remorse.
Yeah.
Right? Like you look into a tiger that's in a cage and you're like, he is judging me, and if he gets out, he will rightfully extract his revenge.
Yeah.
I've never looked in an aquarium and been like, "There, look at this. Don't get me, Mr. Shark." Like, good, you stay there.
But, like, in all reality, that fish probably had a lot more space and traveled a lot.
The ocean is larger than the earth. Yeah,
Correct.
it's the biggest part of the earth. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know why I brought up the ethical issue. That probably convolutes this. But
super weird now. Oh no!
I feel weird.
I like.
What do I do with my
zoos.
hands?
I don't know if I can like zoos.
Yeah, I'm more pro
If you
zoo.
love zoos, leave it in the comments. Okay, yeah.
I'm more pro zoo than I am aquarium.
Okay, yeah. Is it on your platform, your ballot?
Yeah, if I'm running for president, I'm
Pro zoo.
I'm going
Okay,
pro zoo.
Pro zoo.
Here's the deal. Over aquarium.
Yes.
Aquariums are cool. I do feel like
The replay value on a zoo is higher.
yes.
Yes.
Like the aquarium, once you've seen it, you've seen it.
Unless you get to go swimming with them, but again, that never happens.
Who's getting in the
No,
water?
you don't. That's the point. You don't get to.
Do you consider SeaWorld as an aquarium?
Oh, that's a dangerous question. We should ask some of our other friends in podcasting. Is SeaWorld a dangerous aquarium? I don't know. I think the answer is probably yes.
Now, killer whales are my favorite animal in the world.
Yeah, and the fact that we've seen them up close reveals a lot.
By the way, let's talk about this for a moment.
Okay.
YouTube channels.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if you're not checking us out on YouTube
You can.
and you're one of our listeners,
You can now be one of our viewers.
anyway.
Fancy that.
So, the orca.
The orca.
When I
it
see
were.
videos
Yes.
of folks in kayaks
Just out kayaking.
giggling
Yeah.
when a pool of orcas
Yeah.
are all around them,
Right.
I'm like, you
haven't watched enough orca videos.
No, you are in the water
Right.
with what I think is the alpha of the ocean.
It's the velociraptors of the ocean. Yeah.
Those are to me those are way scarier than any great white.
Right. Because they work together.
They're
So
smart.
one of the things a couple years ago in our Youth Ministry Booster community, we had animal themes for some of the things and leadership principles, and the orca was one because of how they work together. There is terrifying footage of orcas working together to flip a floating ice floe that has seals on it to hunt them.
Beautiful.
They flop their bodies to tilt it like it's some kind of evil carnival ride, and the seals slide down and the other one jumps it. That's it. Like, they work together. Like, they throw their body, they tip the seesaw, and they chomp it.
Zach, I just need you to know that I'm willing in any part of our relationship in life.
To flop your
I'll
body on the
flop my body
okay.
on it. Yeah.
You flop your body on the ice floe, and then I'll be there ready to chomp. That's it. That's actually the Zac and Chad.
Friendship.
That's friendship. That's strategy and friendship. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, even though orcas are my favorite,
Belly flop for success.
I just feel like the zoo has more options.
That's right. It's a grander ecosystem. Yeah.
Because you can get a few fish inside the zoo.
It is kind of, that's the trick question, is that a lot of zoos will have a smaller aquarium section.
Yeah.
So there is, like, if you need the field the fish need, there's fish available.
There's some people out there that are pro aquarium that are very upset.
They're very upset. Well, and I get it because it's always air conditioned. Like the thing about an aquarium.
I didn't think about this. I may switch my vote.
Aquariums are always climate controlled, which is kind of...
Dude, in July...
There's not a year-round zoo. There is a year-round aquarium, and that is nice.
By the way, you talk about year-round. I saw this advertisement for the zoo here in our state that during, like, October... It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. They're like, we're putting pumpkins in all of the cages. And I'm like, wait, why is this a selling point?
Oh, because they're going to watch them like...
Yeah, like it was just like photos of like the tigers batting around pumpkins, which I'm like, why is Tiger doing that?
Hashtag content, man. People need content, and here we got it. Yeah. The great.
I want to be in on that meeting where all the zoo people are sitting around.
Slow day on TikTok.
Yeah,
at the zoo.
and then the like boss zoo guy who, in my mind, smokes.
Well, I mean, he cages animals, so I'm sure he smokes. That makes sense.
Like, all right, media team.
What do you got?
It's the slow months of October here at the zoo.
The leaves don't fall till November, so what do we got?
Nobody wants to look at these camels.
Oh.
What do we do?
Oh, my gosh.
And then one guy's like, well, it's October. What if we put them in costumes?
Can't do that.
Which I would have gone for, though.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm showing up to the
zoo. What costume does a tiger wear? What costume? Like, imagine, like, pick any zoo animal. What costume was a chimpanzee wear?
No, I want to see a tiger dressed up like a raccoon. Just imagine.
You ever seen a raccoon in daytime?
Just imagine a tiger
with a little mask.
Just a little mask.
Just a little mask. Why does that tiger have a mask?
And then I want to see a giraffe with a little mini cape on.
A giraffe and a cape would be good.
Do you tie the cape at the top or the bottom?
I mean, it's all the neck. So, like, again, where do you tie your cape? Up by the ears or down by the shoulders?
But that's not his ear. That's like...
Well, his ears are way up there. So that's the thing. Is the cape up by your jawline? I think it's probably down low, right?
I think it depends on the length of the cape.
Maybe it's like one of those real estate banners where there's lots of flags down the back of it.
Can you imagine if this is the first episode you've ever tuned in to?
They're done.
For?
They've already left.
Like,
this is it. We're past. Yeah. This had nothing to do with preaching.
Oh, but if you've been in student ministry long enough,
you know this is about.
You know this is the 7th grade conversation right before the small group.
We've anticipated the small group conversation and we've already front loaded it. You're welcome, America. Yeah, we got it. Yeah.
We've given you a question to ask your 7th graders.
Yeah. If you could pick a zoo animal, what costume would you put on it for Halloween this year?
I need to know from some of our listeners, because I know that they're going to give us some bangers.
Yeah.
Of like, what do you want to see different animals dressed up as?
See, I immediately jumped. I didn't go animal on animal costume. I meant like, is there like an Avengers team power up where like the ape is the Hulk and the chimpanzee is like Iron Man, right? And the orangutan is like Thor.
Dude,
right?
I want to see a little warthog as Iron Man.
A little warthog. Just a little mask with the horns out. It's it. It's good. Pops up. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. I just see them dress up like your kids would. Yeah.
An actual Ant-Man.
Yeah, an actual Ant-Man. An ant as Ant-Man.
More of an ant dressed as a man. A little bitty tie.
Yeah, we got it. We got it there.
Just little dickies.
Just lunchbox in hand, just ready to go to work. He's just ready to go to work.
Carpenter ant.
He's like, I like that he has an ironic costume. Like, there's enough development that there's now irony in their costuming.
Oh my gosh! Just a little carpenter ant has an actual carpenter.
A little carpenter hammer it in.
A little tool man. I'm done. Oh, Dad. Oh my gosh. That's so funny to me. Just a little cooler. Oh my gosh. Oh.
It's just the fire ant. It's just the fire brigade.
Little fireman.
The truck rolls up. Wee, wee, wee.
Fireman, fire ants. It's like they caused their own problem.
They gotta solve it.
Dude,
You're done. That's it.
I'm telling you right now, why are we throwing pumpkins in cages when we've got these cold
These
ideas?
lesser ideas.
Oh, I don't know how much time it would take to dress up ants. Oh, I'm here for it.
Are they going off the rack? Or they got the little bespoke costumes?
Tailored ant.
Well, they gotta fit right. Like,
okay, what are we supposed to talk about?
today's topic was about sermons and preaching, but I think in a crafted experience. That's one of the things that. So for our team, one of our what's become a really exciting annual event is talking about the ways in which teaching, preaching. I mean, I think communicating, stage speaking, large group engagement. Man, there is an art form to it, and I think the way in which you think through it, but being an art form and a practice can sometimes feel really stilted. And yet the best ones are the ones that feel the most natural to the speaker. That's one of the things that we spent a lot of time this last year, not to give any secrets away, but this year, is there is some form that gives breakaway to like creativity, but truly like the best sermon you could preach is both biblical and honest to who you are. I think that keeps the source material honest because you're not trying to present it in any other way. But I think it also gives you an authenticity that, like, if you're not funny, like naturally trying to force funny or like plan your jokes. I'm always really nervous when a youth minister's like, I have a great joke planned. And I'm like, Maybe you do. We'll let the audience decide. Right. Yeah. Or it's like, I got this really great story. And it's like, cool. What does that do? And you're like, I don't know. It's just a really great story. I got to tell it. And so I think that's one of the things that, to get into some of our conversation today with the time we have left, is to really think through. So stipulation, you should have a really well crafted, researched piece of scripture that you are presenting and proclaiming. I think there is, we can debate in a different episode exactly what that looks like, how much scripture, the right pericope, making sure that we're cross-referencing to like this. There's a whole separate study element to it. But for those that are teaching and speaking and wanting to connect at a better level, given that your material, the scripture is right and true and good and faithful, how do we best communicate that to students? And I think it's a certain level of self-awareness that is going to be uncomfortable. Like, you are going to have to get uncomfortable with who you are so you can get comfortable with who you are. That's one of the things. I think for a lot of folks, we see the person we want to aspire to, so we just immediately start copying. It's one of my favorite health questions from earlier this year. One of the guys that I was reading last year as I was kind of on my health journey is, don't you find it interesting that a lot of long-distance runners are all kind of built the same? Some of that is because they train the same and they end up getting a lot of the same muscles. Other parts is that they were built that way. And so like long and lean probably lends itself to better long-distance running versus like stocky and thick for, boxing, fighting, football or whatever. Like some body types are built for certain ways. And the cold water of like, man, your body ain't, you can get healthy, you can get fit, but you may not be built for that particular activity or exercise at that level because of just the shape of who you are. Like, man, we have some friends that are great communicators that when they're in their lane of presenting what they've learned, awesome. Teachers, professors, like they're funny because it's casual and natural. They're not planning their jokes. Or our friends that are really excellent storytellers that like the point isn't to try to like clever you. The point is to connect with you because their life experience just invites you into a way of connecting and understanding that's so very different than other folks that are trying to like convince you, right? Like they connect instead of trying to convince, and like that's hard to hear if you think you're one thing you're not, right? Like you know, and I think a lot of this for folks that like they get messed up because they're like, well, great communicators do what that person does, so I'm going to do what they do. You can be a fan of their biblical excellence without having to adopt their speaking mannerisms,
which is very different.
You've got to separate, yeah.
And I think a lot of times we blend those two, right? Like you start to, whether you like it or not, there are teachers that you listen to, right? And there are teachers that we enjoy, and a lot of times people that we listen to more often than not, even like subconsciously, you don't recognize it. You'll start to take on some of their mannerisms,
the little like phrases they say, the things they say, the cadence of their speech,
and so specifically like when you're young and you're kind of taking in these things,
just to figure yourself out.
And it doesn't always have to be like sermon speakers. Like we will hear people address things and talk about things, and oftentimes it's the things that interest us, that will end up communicating live.
The youth pastor that got really into TEDx stuff, and like all of their talks are so poignant,
right?
And it's like, are you some kind of clever robot,
right? Or one of the things that I see a lot in sermons is the emphasis. I will see guys
hammer home
pound points that aren't points. It's just like
whether because that YouTuber they like does it, or the newscaster is like, and this is the thing, and then they've said this is the thing 8 times, and they're 8 different points, and I'm like, how many things are there? There's so many things.
And a lot of that is practicing. You talked a little bit about the experience that we have coming up, and one of the things that we do that I love about the experience is put everybody in pods. We ask them to bring a sermon.
We actually work the sermon over multiple times, which is a rare gift for a lot of folks because typically it's one and done,
right?
And it's hard to get better if it's always one and done.
And so and part of that is really understanding like what is my voice. And I think the thing to remember is you can be a great communicator at a lot of different styles. And I actually think everyone has a voice that they can be a solid communicator in the space that you're at. And so, understanding who you are, understanding who your audience is the other piece that I think is a big piece of the puzzle.
It's it's how connections are made of who you are in relationship to them.
I think a lot of communicators, even once they start to understand who they are. Okay, I'll talk about the two extremes.
Okay.
The two extremes are often this. A lot of times people that I would say are, let's say, further down on the communication road. They've either become pretty funny and engaging. And so they just lean on that. Or they've become very studious. You've gotten your seminary
learned
degree.
Some things, and they're going to share them things.
Correct. And a lot of times what happens on both of those ends, I actually think you drop the ball. Even if you have a unbelievably unpacked, like amazing, like seminary-esque, like manuscript. When you're delivering that...
These Greek words are dunamos.
When you're delivering that to an 11-year-old, they're not there. Your audience, that talk could be dynamite in a room of 24-year-olds, but fall flat in a room of 11-year-olds. And I think we've got to get
adept.
Yes,
Yeah.
because here's the deal, man. Like, the point of that is for the listener.
Yeah.
Like, it is for the growth of that person.
Yeah.
And you can
There's a
debate.
timeliness factor too. Again,
Yes.
it's experience, so it's happening in a moment. This is not like, I think sometimes we like abstract sermons as like this is great for all time.
Right.
We retrospectively will go back and read or listen to sermons, but man, like those sermons existed in a moment, in a place, with a group, for a people,
Yeah.
for a reason.
In the same way, you can be the guy who's charismatic, great storyteller, whatever, funny,
Yeah.
and you can get up there and you can kill.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, those kids laughed. They had,
Yeah.
and you even have kids come up to you afterwards talking about that story and all these
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
things. And you can walk away and out of there, and it's fallen flat of its purpose of helping that student grow.
Yeah.
And both of those examples, the outcome may feel different, right? The kid, that guy that's really studied, in his mind, he may go, well, I want my kids to be deep. Okay, but you're probably trying to teach swimming lessons by just throwing kids in the deep end.
Yeah.
And you may have
Sink or float.
one that gets it, but you got a lot of bodies at the bottom of the pool.
Right.
But then the other side, right, it's just the fun entertainment.
Yeah.
And I think the kryptonite in that, Zach, is because of the society that we live in. That guy, I think it's the most dangerous because he can draw a crowd.
Yeah.
And he can, at the end of the day, feel like it's successful, and we've not taken students anywhere.
Yeah.
And we've got to learn of what is that place to where we could really start to think through at a bigger scale
Yeah.
of, okay, where are we taking these students over a longer period of time?
Yes.
And what are we teaching to this week that gets us there? All of those kind of things. The other aspect of communicating that I think is really useful, and I know we can't talk about all of them, but one of the areas that I think needs to be some growth in our profession is some of those, like, I would consider them public speaking basics of things like body movement, pitch,
Volume, tone, yeah.
all of these kind of things that we all can work on.
Yeah.
Of alleviating so many of those, like, mental pauses.
Remove the distractions, remove the verbal tics, the I'm not sure kind of things, so that you can remove distractions and then highlight the features.
Well,
I
the
think
thing
that's
that a lot of that does, and it's the reason that I think a lot of youth pastors feel like they need to be speaking 30 to 40 to 45 minutes in a sermon, because they're like, well, I can't tell them everything that I need to tell them in 20 minutes.
Right.
Well, the reason is you have a lot more filler in your talk than you think you do.
That's right.
And if it's impossible to get through a piece of text in 20 minutes, then I think you're only looking at student ministry in 1 week increments, and not realizing, wait, maybe this is 2 or 3 talks.
Week over week, series stuff. And then I think also, man, like, this is the cool part of the time that we live in doing student ministry. The midweek sermon is not your only platform to communicate to your students. Like, man, I would love my youth pastor, if I was 17, if he has a funny story, make that thing a reel, or send that out as a group message, or post it somewhere like that. Let that be the connective thing from now till then. Or if there's one additional thought, like that was always for a season when we were at the Tulsa church here, whoever was teaching, if they felt like they missed something, we'd record it in the office the Sunday afternoon or the Monday, and we just push it out to the group text that we had or whatever. It was our after moment or whatever. So if there was like, and one more thing. There's just like one more thing I wanted to share, and you just, set it up, record it, edit it, send it. And then that was a great way to add a little extra 4 to 6 minutes without it feeling like, man, if you feel like you've finished and it's 21 minutes, don't make it 30 because you felt like you needed to go to 30, you know?
We used to refer to those as leftovers.
Well, leftovers? Okay,
Yeah,
I
so
like
it's
the
like,
takeout.
you know, it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
the food was so good that you had leftovers.
Leftovers, you can wrap it up for later. Yeah.
And I think a good sermon, is that.
Yeah.
Like getting it down to teachable for a middle school student. There should be good cuts left on
the floor,
the floor,
or the fridge. And I think let's run with it. I think the plate imagery is really good. Like there is a meal that's healthy and balanced. That's the right thing to serve. That's not overloaded with one thing more than the other, or more than they can eat.
Yeah.
We've talked about on our team. I know that we're out on the road with essential stuff. One of the major points that we're hitting is that in a relationally starved age, the last thing we should be doing is overloading our students with something they're not accustomed to and be surprised that we get kind of a gluttonous result, right? Like if you're starved for attention, like you need to be really careful in the ways in which you're feeding attention. And if they're overwhelmed by content, I don't think shoveling more cardboard pizza content at them is going to make them healthier. Right. And I think that's where, again, some of those health imagery things really matter. And I think also help us work hard to stay, again, word of the year this year is durable, durable and memorable. I think a lot of us have a lot of things we want to say, but we even forget the thing that we were talking about because it wasn't portable or it wasn't storable or memorable in a way that was tied to an image or an idea or an action. Because it's cool when the experience makes you feel something. It's even different when it feels like it's empowering to act. And so like to know what now is next is a huge question you should ask for. Why am I even presenting this to them? So
yeah, because I mean, it doesn't matter how rich and theologically good your sermon is if your kids don't understand it.
Save it for your book, save it for your paper. But and then download this into that moment, right? Like so case in point. So personal example. In a month or so, I'm sharing with a group who's doing 3 small group sessions for their weekend event, and they've invited me to come share for their one and only large group gathering. Chad, I have already, as I've begun to work on this, been tempted of like, I got to say it all.
Just say it all, right?
I lit one session.
Right.
They've been meeting in small groups all weekend, and I'm coming in for one session. My friend, like, do not let me try to cover too much.
Yeah.
Because they've already done 3 sessions work before I got there. Like, I need to come in and say one good thing because I'm going to be gone, and they're going to stay.
I think, let's call it what it is. I think that thought, when you're younger or not as wise or whatever, I'm not saying we are, but I know that for myself, I would have been tempted.
Last episode, you said you were almost 40.
Yeah, I know that I would have been unbelievably tempted in that same way.
To do it all.
To want to do it all.
Yeah.
To want to wow. You know what I mean? And
strap in, we're going to be here for 49 minutes.
And I got to make sure to tell a great story.
Yeah, at least 2, if not 3.
I think the maturity in a lot of this is realizing it's not about us.
Yeah.
It is truly about helping these teenagers
Yeah.
grow and learn. And to do that, there has to be sacrifice.
Yeah.
There has to be a level of thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
Of realizing, okay, how do I engage these students in a way that gets them listening to me, that builds trust in just one talk.
Right.
But then also gets quick to that text.
Yes.
To give them the ability to really munch on some stuff that is life-changing.
Yeah.
And then begin to ask the question of how do I apply it?
There's a response to the thing that you've had them work over.
And I think for us that the real temptation is only thinking about that when you're asked to come speak at something.
And not week in and week out.
I've met so many guys that want the next platform.
Yeah.
And they're not giving thoughtfulness to the platform they're given now.
This midweek, next week, the next time you get to preaching big church, as it were, in the congregation and community you're in, 12, 20, 120. How are you valuing that as if you were the guest coming in with one message to share? It matters. And I think for wherever you're at now, planning your next talk, it's really easy to think, it's another week. But what might they need this week? Not another, but this week, in a way that you have been challenged and faithful to prepare and say, that might give them a little more daily bread and a little more of what's next response to the gospel message.
Snap.